Hello and good evening, everybody, and I want to welcome everyone to tonight's episode of Album Rant. If memory serves me correctly, I believe we are now on episode 45, and wow, that is quite an accomplishment, but all we can really do is just keep on rolling. But tonight, what I'm going to do is we are going to return to a band called Aerosmith. American hard rock and unfortunately later pop metal band, but we're going to kind of steer very, very far away from that direction. And instead, I am going to focus very heavily tonight on their fourth studio release, released in 1976, just called Rocks. Now, this will not be my first time talking about Aerosmith, and it's probably not going to be my last time talking about Aerosmith, but this is, for a fact, indeed, my third time talking about them. I did a review, maybe not quite a year ago, about Get Your Wings, and I've also done a song tournament on them, so we are no stranger to this band right here, so that's a good thing. But anyways, I kind of, in the last episode, talked about how we got up to Get Your Wings in 1974. Started off with that debut record, had a very raw, underdeveloped sound to it. Wasn't very successful. I mean, I love it, but other than the songs Mama Kin and Dream On, which still comes on the radio today, a little too much, that album was largely forgotten by critics and mainstreamers. But then, like I said, in 1974, they put out Get Your Wings, and it had a much slicker production to it, and I think it really benefited the album as a whole. And even though I love that debut album, I thought Get Your Wings was a lot better. And it's one of my all-time favorites, and we'll probably be returning to that territory at some point. But then in 1975, everything changed. They put out their third studio release, and it was entitled Toys, Toys, Toys in the Attic. And this propelled them into the stratosphere. It was one of the most successful albums of all time, and is easily considered to be one of Aerosmith's absolute best. And it is largely due to the two hits, Walk This Way and Sweet Emotion, which, yes, are severely overplayed, but I can't help but love them, and that entire album was incredible in my opinion. I loved the title track. I loved Uncle Salty. I loved Adam's Apple. I talked about Walk This Way and Sweet Emotion. Great songs. We have Big 10-inch Record. We had No More, No More, Round and Round, and it ended with a power ballad called You See Me Crying. Well, following Toys in the Attic, the next year was 1976. The pressure was on them. The big question that was on everybody's mind was, is Aerosmith going to be able to replicate the success of Toys in the Attic? Are they going to continue to be the big powerhouses that they've established themselves as? Well, the answer, let's find out. So we have the cover right here, and obviously the diamonds are the rocks, I suppose. Not very clever. But let's see over here on the back. There is no gatefold on this, so that's a little bit unfortunate. But remember, we have the lineup right here. I talked about these guys extensively in my previous episode, so I'm not going to say too much. But we have Steven Tyler, who is the primary lead vocalist. We have Joe Perry, who is the primary lead guitarist. We have Brad Whitford, who is also the guitarist, the other guitarist. They have two guitarists. We have Tom Hamilton on bass guitar, and we have Joey Kramer on the drums. And now coming right back up here, we have side 1 and we have side 2. And it all starts with Back in the Saddle, which I am sure to many audiences at the time, this was not what they were expecting. This is one of the most bizarre songs I have ever heard in my life. And something you gotta realize about this band at the time, they were very, very heavily into the drugs. primarily cocaine and heroin. And well, needless to say, it shows, okay? But the main riff that this song follows, it definitely falls outside of what you would call normal. It definitely falls outside what you would expect, but I think that really makes it a lot better, okay? And I think in latter years, what they've come to say that this song is representing is basically, here's another album, folks, and we're going to rock out, and I've really got my spurs on. That was a quote, I think, from either Joe Perry or Steve Tyler, I can't remember, but this song has a very spaghetti western kind of feel to it. And I know that really sounds kind of odd, but that is exactly what I thought the very first time I heard this. And again, it definitely starts out fast, but it keeps building up and building up. It's got a very slow build up. But after that initial intro, Steve Tyler is roaring and he is squawking, and it sounds absolutely awesome. And Aerosmith classic. I mean, I absolutely love this song, and I was supposed to see them last October. Well, the show got postponed, but now it's back on for this October, and I do expect them to play this, and they should play it. You can see right there, it was written by Steve Tyler and Joe Perry, so there's that at least. But, yeah, the lyrics are also incredibly sexual in nature, and from what I've gathered, the saddle refers to the variety of sexual positions that one could find themselves in, so yeah, we've got that going for it. But yeah, Back in the Saddle, Aerosmith classic, good lead-off track, definitely not what we were expecting, but I love it all the same. Then we come to Last Child, and I love this song ever since I first heard it. First time I heard it, I believe it was between my freshman and sophomore years of college, making that 2005. I bought a little greatest hits, so I was trying to get into them. I knew to stay away from their 80s stuff because I had heard it and I had already hated it. But I never really dove very far into their 70s stuff. And well, Last Child is just as good as Back in the Saddle. Does it sound the same? Not even close. While Back in the Saddle was an incredibly bizarre yet definite hard rocker, Last Child starts out very soft. It's got a very soft guitar intro, but then when it starts finally getting past the intro, this thing is funky. Dun 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 dun. And I think I may have mentioned this in that episode of Song Tournament I did, but there was one time that we were in the van on the way to cross-country practice, and actually, no, we were coming home from a meet, actually. Yeah, it was a meet in Winthrop in 2006, and this came on the radio, and I tried to sing it. I barely made it past the first line before I had to say, okay, fine, I don't know the lyrics. So, yes, I do not know the lyrics, but it's a great song, and again, they do not repeat themselves. They do not just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and that I really respect, and this definitely dives into funk rock, and you know, they're expanding into various genres, and it totally works here. But yes, a couple of years later, after I first discovered this song got incredibly popular because it was featured on the game Guitar Hero. And all my friends were all of a sudden all about it. I'm like, you know, I did not need Guitar Hero to let me know how awesome this was. So, yeah. Take that, you noob. But anyways, that was Last Child. And then we now move to Rats in the Cellar. And this one is a little bit faster, and apparently it was originally called Tit for a Tat. I heard that, I guess through the grapevine. I think I was reading something and I heard that, so feel free to fact check me on that one. But this one is, again, a lot more faster. It's a lot more traditional than the first two. The first two songs most absolutely took risks, and they totally paid off. Not all risks pay off, but those two absolutely did. This one is unfortunately a little bit more by the numbers, but that doesn't make it bad. It's still great. It's still very, very definite hard rock, but I think it's not quite up to the standard that the first two songs set. But this is meant to be a continuation of Toys in the Attic. So we have Toys in the Attic, and now Rats in the Cellar. I guess we kind of have the inverse situation going on there, I suppose. But from what I understand, this was actually heavily, heavily inspired by a song by Fleetwood Mac called The Rattlesnake Shake. No, not the Motley Crue version, the Fleetwood Mac song. I don't actually think those two songs have anything in common aside from their name, but that's another story. But I'm unfortunately not a very big Fleetwood Mac fan, so I really don't know too much about them, but if anyone can expand on that idea, feel free to talk about it in the comments and educate me. And what's going to conclude side one is going to be the song that was solely written by Joe Perry entitled Combination. And apparently, Joe Perry takes lead vocals and is accompanied by Steve Tyler. Well, I gotta be honest. It sounds like Steve Tyler. I mean, if Joe Perry is actually singing, maybe they're singing together in harmony. I'm not really sure, but I'm just telling you, it sounds a lot like Steve Tyler, so I'm not sure how much Joe Perry actually sang on this one. He did sing on Bright Light Fight on the next album, Draw the Line, and it sounds totally different to whoever's singing on Combination, but, you know, what do I know? I wasn't there. I was not even alive. But apparently the song is also very, very, very drug-induced. It's about cocaine and heroin, as many of their songs were back then. But apparently, the line, walking on Gucci, wearing Yves Saint Laurent, barely stay cause I'm so goddamn gaunt. Oh, I think I may have said that correctly. Joe Perry has said that is the best lyric he has ever written. I'm not too entirely sure what that means, but I'll take his word for it. But that is going to conclude side one, and there is not a weak spot on side one at all. And very, very tough call on this one, but I think my favorite from side one is probably going to be Back in the Saddle. Again, because it took risks, they paid off, it was hard rock, that is what I like, and Back in the Saddle probably is going to be my favorite. Before Aerosmith had to postpone their tour due to Steve Tyler having some complications, this was the opening song on every single show, and I do expect them to play it again, and I hope they do. So now we're going to move over to side number 2, and it's going to kick off with Sick as a Dog, written by Steve Tyler and Tom Hamilton, and this one is very, very upbeat. I wouldn't exactly call it fast, but it's definitely got less of a darker tone as some of the other songs did. Now, this song is very, very confusing in the sense that, well, let me back up. Let's just move down here, see what we have right here. So, yeah, here are the credits, and Tom Hamilton apparently plays guitar on Sick as a Dog. What do we have over here? Joe Perry. No, never mind. Yeah, where am I? Yeah, he apparently plays bass on Sick as a Dog. Steve Tyler apparently also plays bass on Sick as a Dog, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but it seems everyone seems to be trading off instruments. I'm not quite sure why, but again, apparently in the studio, multiple members would play multiple instruments, and they would actually switch over in between takes. The entire thing is just bizarre, but again, it's a pretty bizarre song, but it's definitely upbeat. And again, people are playing things, they're playing instruments they're not usually accustomed to. But then, Sick as a Dog segues into what may be, actually, let me back up. It is what I voted the greatest Aerosmith song of all time. Nobody's Fault. It's got a very, very mellow fade-in. The guitars are very soft at the beginning, and it's kind of like they'll start picking up and slow down a bit. then start picking up and slow down a bit, then start picking up and slow down a bit until the entire song just explodes. Wikipedia calls this song heavy metal, and I have to agree with them on this, okay? This is definitely one of the hardest things they have ever done. It is definitely one of the heaviest things they have ever done, and I love every single second of it. Would I actually call it my favorite Aerosmith song ever? I don't know, because on Song Tournament, there were some great songs that didn't even make the tournament. But this was the winner of Song Tournament, and this has been very, very influential to other metal artists. Many other metal artists, thrash metal artists, have covered it, but Metallica, Guns N' Roses, even Nirvana have cited this as a definite influence to them. Now, I'm not exactly a huge Nirvana fan, but I do recognize the impact they've had on the industry and the genre, and I definitely respect that. Get the Let Out is another kind of funky song. It starts on, it goes dun 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 dun. Almost sounds like 50s or 60s music in a sense. But I gotta admit, Get the Let Out is probably one of the more disposable songs on here. But again, it does well, and I really do enjoy it. Maybe not as much as some of the other stuff, but this one is, again, much like Sick as a Dog. It's a lot more upbeat, definitely more upbeat than Nobody's Fault, and that may be why I don't quite like it as much, but I still like it all the same. But then things start kicking up once again, and we have a Lick and a Promise, and this was apparently the band's movement or effort to produce a hard-rocking live show, and I definitely can see that in there. But again, it starts out, it's got a nice drum intro, and it goes and basically it starts kicking in, and this thing is a lot faster than Get the Let Out, and I definitely do respect that and everything. But yeah, it's a great song. Definitely not quite as memorable as maybe some of the other stuff on here, but I still do like Lick and a Promise all the same. But then we close it out with Home Tonight, written exclusively by Steven Tyler. Now, this song is very, very similar to the concluding song off Toys in the Attic, which was You See Me Crying. And that was a definite power ballad. And Home Tonight is another power ballad. Now, when I say power ballad, I'm not talking about Angel or Crying or I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. Oh, I never want to hear that song again. This is, it's not sappy, okay? Even though it's a ballad, it's not this sappy, oh baby, I love you kind of music. It's just more of a soft, not really soft, but definitely a slower song that is meant to deliver more of an emotional punch to it. And apparently, Steve Tyler wanted this song to be as big as Dream On. Well, it wasn't. But nevertheless, I still do really enjoy it. And that is going to conclude side 2 of Rocks. And what would my favorite song be from side 2? Well, guys, on side 1, I definitely had to think about it quite a bit. Side 2, it's no contest. It is definitely Nobody's Fault, and it's nowhere even close. So, yes, that is going to be my conclusion of Rocks by Aerosmith. Back in the Saddle being the best song from side 1, and Nobody's Fault being the best song from side number 2. These guys were very well known as the Rolling Stones of the 70s, and I can definitely see where they got that title from. These guys are definitely Rolling Stones influenced, and they're absolutely incredible. And I am a huge fan of the Rolling Stones, but Aerosmith is definitely more leaning towards the genre of music that I like. And so, while I understand how legendary and influential the Stones were, even though I do love them, I am definitely more of an Aerosmith fan, but that is just simply my personal preference. But anyways, I absolutely do recommend you pick up Rocks. Aerosmith had 3 absolutely and totally legendary albums right in a row, and this would be the third part and concluding chapter of that trilogy. Yes, they had great stuff later, but I don't think it ever fully reached the height that those three albums made or did. Get Your Wings, Toys in the Attic, and Rocks. Anyways, thank you all for joining me tonight. The album that I am going to review next, no matter how many more times I'm going to listen to it, I am never going to put it down for a while. But until then, have a very pleasant evening.